Joining us now with more, Texas Senator Ted Cruz is with us. But let me just start with an offbeat constitutional question. Happens to be in your wheelhouse, to your great credit. Now, my reading of the Constitution is pretty clear. Doesn't seem very complicated. The House of Representatives, they alone, not the Senate, have the sole power to impeach a president. Is that right, sir?
That's right.
And the Senate, they have the sole responsibility, constitutional authority to have the trial, correct?
That's right. Nancy Pelosi got a little confused on that, but you're absolutely right.
Okay. Now help me out here. Why, and I love your idea, you're like the saving grace in all this, why would Republican senators, they're now supposed to hear the case, why did you impeach him? They're not supposed to enhance the case or make the case. Their job is to let them present the case, and then there is no case, then they should vote to acquit. Why are they talking about bringing in other people?
Listen, I think you're exactly right. The good news is that the partisan circus in the House is over. Nancy Pelosi's circus is done. And we're not going to see the one-sided show trial that the House is engaged in for months and months and months. That farce is over. In the Senate, here's what I hope happens. I hope the Senate, I'm confident, the Senate will conduct a fair trial. That means we'll give the House managers an opportunity to present their case. We'll listen to what they have to say. But then we're going to do something that the House didn't do, which is we're going to give President Trump a full opportunity to defend himself, to present his case, to lay out the facts and evidence and law that the House ignored. And once the president is able to defend himself, I am confident that the result of that is the president will be acquitted. And the reason is these articles of impeachment on their face are ridiculous. They don't satisfy the constitutional standard of high crimes and misdemeanors. And so we've moved out of Nancy Pelosi's world. It's why she delayed this for so long, because she knew that once the House no longer had it, that they wouldn't be able to put on a kangaroo court like they have. And instead, we're going to move in the Senate where I hope and believe we're going to follow the law. And that means we're going to acquit the president.
The federal rules of evidence, I understand them. We'll have the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, John Roberts. He will be presiding over this sham show. Federal rules, I'm glad you have a sense of humor, Senator. Some people are not getting it confidentially. But now we have a situation where federal rules of evidence are clear. Hearsay evidence is inadmissible. Opinion witnesses, they're nice. You can have experts on all sides. But that has nothing to do with the trial. There's only one fact witness, if I'm not mistaken, that the House brought in. That would be Ambassador Sondland, who said the president wants nothing, no quid pro quo.
Look, you're right. The bulk of the testimony in the House would be inadmissible in any federal court, in any state court. An awful lot of it was hearsay, was people who had no direct evidence, witnesses who'd never even met President Trump, much less heard anything he had to say. And an awful lot of the testimony was essentially, I don't know, but I know a guy who knew a guy who told me this happened. Now, there's a reason courts don't let that testimony in, because it's notoriously unreliable. That being said, if the House managers get up and they want to do a presentation on all of their ridiculous, somebody knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy who said the following, I feel confident that President Trump's lawyers are going to eat their lunch, because it's ridiculous. And the reason you know it's ridiculous, if you look at the articles that the House voted out, you remember for months and months they were talking about quid pro quo. Well, they didn't vote out anything on quid pro quo. They were talking for weeks and weeks about bribery. They didn't vote out anything on bribery. This is the first time in the history of the country a president has ever been impeached without an article even alleging criminal conduct. They don't allege a single federal law that was violated, not a criminal law, not a civil law. This is a partisan sham, because they're mad. The House Democrats are mad at the American people for electing President Trump. And that's why the result of this is going to be rejecting the articles of impeachment. You know, you mentioned witnesses. What I've been saying, I don't know if there's going to be 51 senators to bring witnesses in or not. I think there's plenty already to reject these ridiculous articles of impeachment. But if they are going to bring witnesses in, we're not going to do what the House did of a one-sided show trial. And I think it should be at a bare minimum 1-for-1. So if the prosecution brings a witness, if they bring John Bolton, then President Trump can bring a witness. He can bring in Hunter Biden, and it should be fair and even. And I got to tell you, fair and even and actually on the facts scares the living daylights out of Democrats because they know on the facts they lose.
I would love to see Schiff, the non-whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower, quid pro quo Joe, and zero experience Hunter. I'd like all four of them. If you're right, we'll trade you Mick Mulvaney, John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, and maybe Vice President Pence even, who had meetings. There were 5 meetings after the call. At none of those meetings was aid ever discussed. Aid was never even mentioned on the call, Senator.
They don't want to get into the facts. And what they're really terrified of, and you've done a great job addressing it, is the very significant evidence of real corruption. You got Hunter Biden making $83,000 a month from the biggest natural gas company in Ukraine. And what was he being paid for? He wasn't a geologist. He wasn't a geophysicist. But his daddy was vice president, and his daddy was intervening in a very direct way. And that is significant evidence, I believe, of corruption. At a minimum, it's more than enough for the president to say, we're going to follow the law and investigate it. And I expect to hear that at considerable length from the president's defense team. Senator,
I love your proposal. We're going to have the witnesses, at least 1 for 1. I hope they pick 4. Then I get the 4 I want. On Adam Schiff, and he'll be a witness in his own case. Then the not hearsay whistleblower, and we get quid pro quo Joe and zero experience Hunter. All right. Thank you, Senator. We appreciate it. Thanks for clarifying all that. But